Hey everyone, it's Jen. Welcome back to Yarn Purpose. I'm back today with another coffee catch-up. Hey everyone, it's Jen. Welcome back. I have a coffee catch-up episode for you today. And today I have my coffee in this to-go cup. I don't know if any of you live in the, I think they're mostly in the northwest and western suburbs of Chicago, but Brunch Cafe. My husband was working from home today, so we went to lunch at Brunch Cafe and I got my coffee to go. Coffee there's pretty good. Anyway, let's go ahead and get started. So, as far as finished objects go, I don't have any. I have been pretty busy on the work front lately, so I haven't really gotten a lot of personal knitting and crochet time, but I do have some works in progress to show you, so I'm just going to go ahead and start there. So I'm going to start with the January socks. You might recall in my last episode, in the last coffee catch-up, I was talking about my plan to sort of knit from my stash of sock yarn, and every month I was going to like randomly pull out a ball. Like I picked out 12 skeins of yarn at the beginning of the year, and then each month I'm going to pick one out, and whatever I pick, that's what I'm going to knit. So I had picked the January yarn, and so this is the yarn from Nomadic yarns, and of course now I can't remember the colorway, and the tag is not in here. Well, I said what it was in the last episode, so I will look up the color, and I'll leave a link to it down below. So I've been working on my January socks. This is still just the first one. So got some foot left to knit and then a whole second sock. So I don't know if these will be done by the end of January. That's coming up quickly, but I am later in this episode going to pick my February yarn, so that will be ready to go when I do finish this. And I kind of went into this like plan of doing this like knitting from the stash, randomly picking out of the bag, whatever. I kind of went into it knowing that 12 pairs of socks was probably going to be hard for me to achieve. So, you know, I kind of told myself, I might get 8 or 10 done out of the bag, but it's still a fun project. So I'm going to go ahead and pick the next yarn, but I probably won't start on the next pair of socks until I finish this pair. But I do love those stripes from Nomadic yarns. And yeah, so we'll be picking in a few minutes here the next sock yarn that I'll be knitting with when I finish these. And then the other thing I've been working on, is it a tote down here? The other thing that has come out of hibernation is my little Hexie crochet project. It looks so, even though this is very unorganized or organized in a way that only makes sense in my head. Oh my gosh, I'm like losing yarn. This looks beautiful to me. Look at all those colors. So I probably talked about it almost a year ago. I had tried being the key word here, to participate in the 100-day project on Instagram, and basically there's a start date and there's like a hashtag. I think the hashtag is like the 100-day project or something, and you just try to commit to doing something for 100 days. So some of my friends were trying to paint 100 days in a row. Some of my friends were doing like lettering and calligraphy, or you could, you know, whatever. So I had said I was going to crochet a Hexie a day out of sock yarn leftovers to ultimately make a blanket. And I was doing real good for a while. And then about, I don't know for sure, probably about halfway through, about the time I got busy with work in the spring, I sort of abandoned this project. And so I had quite a few Hexies, and some days I was crocheting more than one. So I probably had like 50 or 60 made, maybe even more than that. But so then I put everything just shoved into this tote. The lid's out in my living room right now. And just threw it in my closet and kind of forgot about it. But then recently I just found myself needing something that wasn't knitting to work on. I've been, like I had kind of said at the beginning, I've been doing a lot of work knitting, which is great. But a couple days ago, I just really hit the point where especially my left hand, when I'm knitting a lot, I get like, I call it the claw, because I don't know, I just like grip on to that knitting needle for dear life with my left hand or something. And so my left hand especially was feeling it from all the knitting. I had knit like one shawl in 3 or 4 days, and it was like a 2 skein shawl. It was a lot of knitting, which is again great, but I needed a little bit of a knitting break, and so I didn't have any crochet work to do, so that's how this ended up coming back out. So now that I've rambled on about it, I wanted to kind of show you what I did with it. So I wasn't really sure at first when I pulled it out if I wanted to start crocheting Hexies again. I did end up crocheting a few. I think I made these 4, so I've crocheted 4 more. So I had this, I don't know what a lot of the yarn is, because some of it I've had for years and years. Some of it's left over from like my very first knitting book I wrote like 5 years ago or 6 years ago. But I did have some of that leftover rainbow yarn that you've seen a lot on my coffee catch-ups from White Birch Fiber Arts, the Nothing Says Screw You Like a Rainbow. I feel like I talk about that colorway in every episode. But I did have some leftovers from my socks that I had made, you know, in the middle of 2018 or whatever. So I still have a little bit more, could probably get a couple more Hexies out of that. So I did these, and then this one I had a bunch of tiny little balls left. Like this is Anzula Nebula, I know. I think that this one is leftover Knit Circus yarn, and this one, I'm not sure about this one. But anyway, I had like teeny little balls of these left, not enough to crochet the whole center of the Hexie. So then I just did like 1 round of the blue, 1 round of the purple, 1 round of the orange, and then finished off. So just to remind you, because I have had this project put away for a long time, so I'm following the traditional granny square, but it's the hexagon in Robyn Chacula's Stitch Dictionary, which is a great crochet stitch dictionary. If you haven't seen it, I'm going to pull it off my bookshelf here so you can see it. Hold on. Okay, so it is the Crochet Stitches Visual Encyclopedia. This is probably my absolute favorite crochet stitch dictionary. And so in here, there is a pattern for a granny square hexagon. So I just have followed that. And now at this point, I pretty much have it memorized because I've made so many. And then the pattern is 5. Let me find a good one here. The pattern is a total, I think, of 5 rounds or something. So basically I'm doing sort of like the granny square part here in the center. I'm trying to do that with a brighter color, and then the last 2 rows along the outside I'm trying to do with more of a neutral. I have like a lot of gray, I have some white, I have a lot of gray yarn left over. So I've been mostly using gray to do the outside of those Hexies. So that is how I have been making the Hexies. But then, like I said the other day, when I kind of pulled this back out, I did crochet a few Hexies, but I kind of just wanted to start joining them together. And joining crochet pieces together is something that I do not know a lot about. When I'm designing in crochet, I typically am doing one solid piece, like in a shawl. I haven't made a lot of granny square things. I haven't made a lot of things that need to be like attached together. So definitely there could be a better way to do this, is the point I'm trying to make, because crocheting things together, attaching crochet pieces together is not my area of expertise. But anyway, I just sort of went for it, and here's what I've come up with. So far it's very much a weird shape, because I've just kind of been attaching them however I feel like. I'm trying to sort of spread out, like, basically I'm just trying to spread out the colors in a way that makes sense in my mind. So I'm trying not to have too many of like the lighter bordered ones like right next to each other. I have some brown. I'm just trying to sort of spread everything out. So I did start attaching everything together. So here's the back. I'm just attaching them together with single crochet. And because all the yarns are different, the hexagons are not all quite the same size. And so, yeah, some of them are a little wonky attached to each other, but I figured like it's a blanket, it's for me. And you know, I always say when I'm teaching my shawl classes and I'm talking about, especially when I'm talking about garter tab cast on, I'm always like, if somebody is like judging your garter tab cast on, like they're standing too close to you, they're in your personal bubble and maybe they need to like back up a bit. That's sort of how I feel about my hexagon blanket. Like they're not attached perfectly. You know, some of them are a little bit wonky because they're different, like slightly different sizes, but I don't care. If I'm snuggled under this blanket at home, nobody should be close to me and judging my hexagon blanket. So anyway, so I attached a bunch together. And so I don't know, I just kind of pulled this out. I don't know. I still think that this is gonna be a long-term project. I had done math a while ago on how many hexagons I needed, and it was something crazy, and I don't even know what notebook I wrote that down in. I felt like I needed like 200 to 300. Well, there's a big difference between 200 and 300 hexagons. The point is, I need a lot. I'm not sure how many. I just want it to be like a nice big blanket that I can like snuggle under on my couch. I love sitting on my couch watching TV or YouTube and knitting or crocheting under a blanket. So that's the purpose of this blanket. I feel like it will match my living room for forever till the end of time because every single color is in it. So yeah, I've talked about this for several minutes now, but I just really love it. And it sort of made me remember that I love crochet. You know, I always tend to pick up the knitting first because I think like for a lot of people, I don't know if you're like this, but a lot of people I've talked to, you tend to pick up whatever you learned first. That's what you typically pick up first. Of course, now I've thought of an exception of my friend Jenny, who I'm pretty sure learned to crochet first, and she almost exclusively knits. But most people, I think, like whatever you learned first is what you like. I think you tend to fall back into a lot. And so like other than crocheting for, you know, design work, I have not been really crocheting much anymore. And this just kind of reminded me that I just need to make time to crochet because, I just want to keep showing it to you all day. My husband said that he thinks that so far this might be his favorite thing I've ever made. And I mean, even though it's like a weird shape right now, I mean, I think I almost agree with him. I think in the end, this may be the coolest thing I've made yet. So anyway, I'm going to stop just staring at my half of a blanket, third of a blanket, eighth of a blanket. I don't know. I'm going to stop staring at it. I can stare at it later when I'm done making this video. Okay, so let's move on and pick some yarn for my stash sock knit along thing. Okay, I have my bag of yarn here. You might remember last month I said I had done an Instagram video picking, but I think I just wanted to pick it on this video this time. So again, to remind you, this bag I got when I was on my Rhinebeck trip with my friends. We went to Saugerties to go to the India Untangled event, and there were some like little freebie bag we got, and this was in there. So this is where all the yarn is stuffed. I'm not going to pull everything back out, but now there are 11 left in there, and it's still so full. I don't know how I want to do this. I guess I'm just going to kind of mix it and not try to look too much. And then I'm just going to, I would think my plan is that I'm just going to try to stick my hand like in there, and then whatever I grab, that's when I knit. I don't know. This seemed like a good idea. Okay. Okay. All right, I sort of mixed it up. All right, I think I'm just going to stick my hand in and just go for it. Ready? Okay, let's see. What am I pulling out? Ooh, it's another Nomadic yarns. There's a lot of Nomadic yarns in here though, because I have Well, it's not a problem. I love it. So this is Nomadic yarns in the Trusty sock base, which is 462 yards for 100 grams, and the colorway is Gumdrop buttons. And oh, the Trusty sock is 75% superwash merino and 25% nylon. There. This is actually kind of a fun color to have for February because it's got some different reds and pinks in it. So great. I'm looking forward to another pair of Nomadic yarn socks. They hold up so well. I'll be honest, the colors, some of those colors, where's that other sock? Here it is. The colors on these, some of them I feel like are so vibrant, like look at that purple and that green, that when I first bought the yarn, I was concerned. I'm like, there is no way that I'm gonna, because I just, honestly, I wash and dry my socks like in the washing machine and the dryer usually. So I'm like, there is no way that this is gonna hold up, me just washing and drying these. I'll tell you what, all of the Nomadic yarns colors that I have, that I've made socks out of, they have not faded at all. They look brand new still. It's amazing. So anyway, I'm really looking forward to making those. So yay, February socks. And then let's see, what else do I want to talk about? Stash enhancements. I haven't bought yarn this month at all. I talked about it, I know in the last coffee catch up, and I've talked about it in other episodes. My friends and I are trying to do a stash down, so for every 3 skeins we use up, then you can buy 1 skein, just to try to keep the stash going down and not up. So as of this recording of this video, I have used up 15 skeins of yarn. And now I feel like I always need to clarify, since designing is my job, but I also like knit and crochet for leisure as well. You know, I'm always fighting that hobby versus job thing. This is 15 skeins of yarn that I have purchased myself. So I have actually, so I started this when we got back from our New York trip in like, you know, towards the end of October. So I have knit or crocheted with way more than 15 skeins of yarn. But as far as the stash down goes, I have used up 15 skeins of yarn that like I have purchased with my own money. And even some of those skeins have been used for designs, but sometimes I buy yarn like when I'm at like a convention or yarn store, and so I typically like buy it thinking, well, like maybe I will design something with it, or maybe I'll knit somebody else's pattern. Like this is the perfect example here. This was my Patreon pattern for January, Gladiolus, and I had bought this yarn. It was from Northern Bee Studio, and I bought it at Vogue Knitting Live. The last time it was in Chicago, I don't know, it was a year or 2 ago. And so like I bought that yarn myself. I wasn't sure what I was going to do with it. But I did use it for design. So I did count that in my stash down because I had actually purchased that yarn. Now, other things where I get yarn support from people, like I'm not counting that towards my stash down. That's like purely work. That is yarn given to me. I made the thing and sent it back out, if that makes sense. So anyway, I am currently 15 skeins of my own yarn that I have purchased out and used up, and I have purchased 4. Probably most of it was Nomadic yarns because she had a ready to ship update the other month, like, I don't know, it was the end of December or something, and I'd had a bad day, and you know how it goes. Like, sometimes you have a bad day and you just need yarn. So anyway, moving on. Point is that there was no yarn has come into the house in the last month to show you. Okay, so that pretty much sums up all the like hobby personal projects. So I'll get into the work stuff because I know some of you do like to see some of the work stuff that I've been working on. So first up is I am designing a new sock pattern. And people seem to be enjoying those sock tutorial videos that I did back last summer. And so I have a pattern that I've been working on. And I'm also doing this in conjunction with the Lots of Socks Cal that Lisa Ross, who is Paper Daisy Creations on Instagram, is hosting and running. I'll leave some links to it down below. But I am working on a new sock pattern. So I have the first one done here. And it's a top-down sock. It just has this little detail here at the top, and then it's just really a plain sock from there. But I am putting the German short row heel in this one, and so that would obviously be in the pattern. And so the yarn here is Leading Men Fiber Arts. Let's see. Do I have the tag? Okay, I can't remember which base this is, and I don't know where my pattern is right now. Could be anywhere. But the colorway is the Bend and Snap, which is a reference to Legally Blonde. And so I had 2 skeins of it, and I used one of them in my Paulette shawl that I released last year, and I had one left. So I decided that I really loved this colorway, and then I decided to make socks. So that is the first sock, and I'm just working on the second one now. So that's like the main like work knitting I've been doing. And then the other thing I wanted to show off today was, you know, I talk about, you know, like I said, like this was a Patreon pattern. So after a certain amount of time, the Patreon exclusive patterns, I do put them out on Ravelry for anybody to purchase, you know, like a regular self-published design. And so now Rhododendron, which was a Patreon pattern from last year, March, May, July, I don't know. It was from last year sometime, is now available on Ravelry. And this one's actually also Leading Men Fiber Arts. Oh, all the yarn today I feel like I'm showing you is like Illinois yarn, because Leading Men Fiber Arts and Nomadic yarns are both in Illinois. But anyway, this is Leading Men Fiber Arts yarn. This is the Callback base, which is a sport weight yarn. And so just to remind you, the Patreon patterns, how it works is my patrons, the people that are members of my Patreon page, I put polls up for like design elements, what types of stitch patterns. And so for this particular one, it was crescent shawl lace with a knitted on border is sort of where we landed with all the polls and stuff. This is one of the faves that I've done. I love that border. I need to put that on something else because knitting it was super fun, and also just looking at it, it's beautiful. So anyway, I'll leave a link to this down below, but this one's now available on Ravelry if anybody's interested. And I always have a link to my Patreon page down below if you are interested. I do share a lot more behind the scenes work stuff there because, you know, most of the knitting I do is work related. So if you're interested in seeing that kind of thing, I always have a link to that down below. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about was some upcoming teaching that I have. I am going to be teaching at the Pittsburgh Creative Arts Festival in March. I think I might have mentioned this before in a video too. So this was previously known as the Pittsburgh Knit and Crochet Show, but now it's Pittsburgh Creative Arts Festival. And so I will be there. It's March 15th to 17th. And I'm teaching a bunch of different classes. I'm teaching lovely lace borders. So if you want to like learn how to add like a border like this, a knitted on border, for example, onto your shawl. We would talk about that in that class and like how to basically add a border to anybody's pattern, not just mine. So I'm teaching lovely lace borders. I'm teaching a slip stitch class. So if you want to try slip stitch knitting, I have a class for that. I'm teaching a class called Switch a Lace Stitch. It's a mouthful. Basically, it's taking a very close look at lace stitches and how just little subtle changes and changing out stitch patterns really changes the overall look of the lace. I obviously love lace knitting. If you're here and watch some of my other videos, you know I am a lace fanatic. And so I really love that class because I think maybe this is just my science background or something, but I think it's really fun to take a close look at the lace and see how like switching different increases or decreases out, how that would like change the overall look. So that's switch a lace stitch. I'm also teaching new directions in shawl shapes. And so that's a class that explores just different types of shawl shapes, really talking about some of the newer, more popular ones that are currently on the scene, and talking about just like where the increases and decreases go for these types of shawls, how to insert different stitch patterns if you want to, so you could design your own. That class is really fun and it's becoming one of the most popular ones I teach. But then I am teaching my most popular class and probably honestly my favorite one to teach, which is Design Your Own Sock Yarn Shawl. That one does focus on top-down sort of like wedge shaped design. But it's a really good place to start, especially if you're interested in writing patterns. I think that, especially if you want to do lace, I think they're the easiest ones to do. But we talk about all different types of shawl shapes. That class, I love it because a lot of times it ends up going in like so many different directions. People come in with all sorts of different ideas. So it sort of works that I have a template that you can use to design your own if you want. But I have people that come in and they have an idea in mind, and we sort of work through how they can get, you know, the shawl that they've been thinking about down on a piece of paper and then design and knit that shawl. So that one's really fun. So again, that's the Pittsburgh Creative Arts Festival, and that is March 15th to 17th, obviously in Pittsburgh. So I will be there all weekend. I'm going to be doing a book signing. Leading Men Fiber Arts is going to be selling my books. So I'll leave some links to that down below too if you are interested. If you're in that area, I would love to see you. So I think that is it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed. I don't know. I feel like I talked about my crochet blanket for half of this video, but it's what I'm currently obsessed with this month, so I guess it makes sense that I talked about it so much. So anyway, if you like this video, don't forget to give it that thumbs up, and if you want to see more videos from me, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and if you like, you can turn on the notifications button to be notified whenever I upload a new video. I hope that everybody has a great week, and happy knitting and crocheting, and I'll talk to you again soon. Bye!